Hey, good evening, everyone. So welcome to the meeting. And just remind you that the meeting is being recorded and will be uploaded to YouTube. So item one, any apologies?
Thank you, Chair. I've received apologies from Councillor Neal, and I understand Councillor Frost is intending to join online, but I haven't seen him yet. I'll let you know when I do.
Okay, fine. Item two, declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest? If there are, please state them and the nature of the interest. No, can't see any. Moving on to item three then, minutes of the last meeting. So are there any matters arising or any points of accuracy from the minutes of the last meeting? See any online? No. Okay. Then I propose that the minutes are adopted as a correct record and ask for a seconder, please. Thank you. And show of hands. Good. Thank you. Item four, are there any urgent items of business?
No, Chair, none notified. Thank you.
Okay, excellent. Let's move on to main business items. First on the list, item 5, strategic risk register. And I'm going to ask Sally Hendrick, who's head of internal audit, to introduce the item. Sally, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, this is the strategic risk register, which we review on a regular basis. So this is reviewed once a quarter by the Council's Strategic Risk Management Group before going on to the corporate management team. With this register, we would normally only bring it to the Governance and Audit Committee twice a year, but we're bringing it again this evening, although it did come to the committee in June, purely really for assisting with clarification, because at the June meeting, there were a couple of queries that I wasn't able to fully respond to because I wasn't at the CMT meeting where the risk register was discussed and some changes were made, and the executive director for resources was on leave at the time of the audit committee. So we brought it back again to the committee this evening, so that if any clarifications are required, it gives you the opportunity to go through these during the course of the meeting. So just to summarise where we are with this strategic risk register, as I said, it was reviewed by Strategic Risk Management Group in August and by CMT on the 3rd of September. And just to draw your attention to the changes that came through from those reviews. So firstly, we have increased the finance risk tolerance level. So not the risk itself, not the current residual risk, but the tolerance target level that we have included in the risk register. The second change that we have made is to reduce the climate change risk, and that was on the basis of the considerable amount of work that the team has done, an investment made, and training undertaken, which has contributed to progress that we have made, which has resulted in a big improvement on the climate change action scorecard. So because of these factors, we have now reduced the climate change risk slightly. The next point is that we have taken out the local economy resilience risk. So I've left it in there so you can see what it looked like before, but I've shown as struck out. But just so you can see what the risk was before, just to remind you about what it was, we have actually removed that risk. And that is basically because it's been very stable for a long time and quite low for a long time. And the view was taken that we could remove it from the strategic risk register and de-escalate it to the directorate risk register. So it is now going to be monitored through the register for the place directorate. The final point I wanted to draw your attention to was the safety valve risk, where this now is, it's a very high risk and really considered almost an issue rather than a risk in itself. So we need to go back to look at this again to consider how we can best reflect it in our strategic risk register. So we will be doing that over the next sort of few weeks. We'll be considering how best to bring that in or reflect it in the strategic risk register, whether it should be coming in within the finance risk, the impact of safety valve, or whether that needs to be brought in some other way. So those are the key points that I just wanted to draw your attention to, and very happy to take any questions that you might have on it.
Councillor Allen.
Just a point where I think more accuracy than anything else. On page 9, on the impact table, it shows that the staffing is in red, but the RAG rating further down, actually on the detail, is in amber. Is that just an inconsistency?
Just an inconsistency.
I think if you look to the risk in the detail, that will be where it should actually be showing the correct RAG rating.
Yeah, so it shows as amber in that one. Thank you.
I think you were both simultaneous, so I'm going to defer to Mr. Hafferty.
Thank you very much. Okay, so obviously it's going to be a bit about climate change with me. So I'm still not completely happy with the way where we are sat there on that risk register. I mean, certainly climate change is happening there at the moment, so it's, you know, the likelihood it is happening and it's going to get a lot worse. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change are pretty much saying it's going to be catastrophic. So it's supposedly going to be, or it is going to be pretty bad. You're right, we've recently adopted the new climate strategy and it's fantastic. It's making good inroads. But even that, at a high level, it discusses impacts beyond those that we actually already have in our risk register. I guess my question is that in our climate change action plan this year, we're undertaking a project for climate adaptation research and planning by March, and it will develop a robust understanding of the climate risks that the council is exposed to. So can we be sure that the findings from that project, which will be in by March next year, will actually be brought into this risk register?
Yes, the strategic risk register, when we have the discussions on each risk, we discuss each individual risk with the lead risk owner for each risk. So we will be discussing it with the relevant officers who cover that particular risk, with the assistant director and with the lead officer for climate change, who will be very keen to bring in any changes or any impacts that have arisen from any policies taken, any action taken. So I'm sure they will make sure that that is reflected in the risk register as it arises.
Have a supplementary?
You have a further question?
Yeah, please. So can I just check that the people that will be altering this register will have been through the carbon literacy training that the council are putting people through at the moment?
Yes, I would very much expect them to have done that, because they're the assistant director and they're the sort of head of service, and they will be leading on that. So it's sort of bread and butter for them really to actually do those. So yeah.
Brilliant, thanks.
Okay, so Councillor Alfred, you don't wish internal audit to come back and confirm that in writing, that they will be trained properly? You're happy to take these assurances, yeah?
I think the main thing is that when we've done the climate adaptation research and planning, that things are there for actually being considered in the risk register. So that's in March. So yeah.
Fine. Councillor Bidwell.
Thank you, Chair. The thing that jumped out at me was safety valve risk, but I think you've more or less answered that. I just wanted to confirm that really what I would expect to see is progress against the plan that was originally agreed to deliver the safety plan, the safety valve solution. So if that is taken or noted, then we can review that.
Do you mean is the sort of progress against the plan reflected in the assessment of the risk? Is that what we're? Yeah. Yes. I mean, certainly so. And yes. I mean, it is actually considered in quite a lot of detail, that particular risk, by the AD covering business change and covering the safety valve risk, and also by the assistant director as well. They go through this in a lot of depth, and there is a lot of review and scrutiny over safety valve as well, as you'd know, in terms of the reporting and the returns that we have to do. So I think everything is very comprehensive in the in the assessment that we do. And clearly as well, Safety Valve has a very, very high profile at their corporate management team. So so when we are updating and reviewing the strategic risk register, those sorts of considerations are taken into account at the corporate management team itself, who have a very good awareness of the Safety Valve programme and the action plan and our status and position against that.
Good, thank you very much. I look forward to seeing it.
Okay, Councillor Haffordson. Councillor Zuhaireddin, beg your pardon.
Thank you, Chair. Risk number 5 regarding cyber resilience. Yeah, cyber resilience is very, very important, and for our all IT systems, there's no doubt about it. My question is, I've read the description for the rationale for score, which is fairly a very industry standard, very generic rationale, which I fully agree and appreciate. So my question is for rating this particular risk as red. So are there any specific similar incidents across other boroughs within the country that have been assessed or came across that made this particular risk being red? Are there any similar incidents? Those have been reviewed across the country in similar IT equipped boroughs?
I mean, my understanding is that the AD for Digital Services, Customer Focus and ICT does look at this particular risk in a lot of detail, and I think she is the one that really provides the lead to us on what the risk score should be. And her view is that given the issues that have arisen at other authorities in terms of attacks and so on, plus the concern that these cyber attacks are led by groups or whatever that are always keeping a little bit of ahead of us, so we are all doing whatever we can to try and prevent everything, that given the nature of it, she does want to actually keep it at this level and is reluctant to actually reduce the risk down. But I can take that back and get her to consider it. Is it that you would consider that it's overscored or?
No, I mean, if there are right reasons, again,
Yeah.
obviously there aren't low level of detail there. I fully appreciate that.
Yes.
So what I'm keen to understand is are there any incidents? Are there any incidents across the country, and in different parts of the country in different boroughs where the cyber attacks have been started to raise? So therefore, did that actually prompt our digital services AD to mark this high? So what I'll be interested in is to see, was there any assessment done with other boroughs to see are there any significant rise in attacks or incidents of attacks that we have considered while scoring this?
I would have to go back to her and confirm that. So I'll check with her. But it is certainly my understanding that is what she does, and she's always mindful about what is happening around the sector, really, in terms of attacks and so on. But I'll check that with her and go back to her and see what she says.
Thank you.
I think I heard anecdotally that we're under attack almost daily. There are attempts all the time.
Yeah.
Just happen to have good cybersecurity at the moment.
But I think it's important to bear in mind they are preventing huge amounts every single day. It's just, I think there's a nervousness about what could be out there that you don't know about, that I think is the concern. But
yeah, being in this profession, this is one of the interesting topics that probably I can understand in a little bit more detail on what sort of assessment is being done, just to add my expertise as well where possible.
Thank you. It's always good to know that we've got expertise here on the committee that can help us understand and talk about these risks. That's good. Councillor Bidwell.
Yeah, just following on from that quickly, it might be worth having some sort of view as to how many cyber attacks are prevented, because that will give some volume and it'd be good. My question really is about, and apologies if it's in your report and I missed it, but the scoring through of the local economy resilience risk has been deleted, it's only there for information. Is that because it's been now managed by the directorate?
Yes, that's the case. So I could have just taken it out completely, but I wanted you to see what we were taking out, so you would be able to see it just for transparency. Because if I just said, "Oh, I'm remove the resilience risk," you might not have a recollection of what exactly it was. So I just wanted to leave it there just so you could see what was removing.
I'm not so sure it should be removed actually, but I guess that's the reason.
I think it's not being removed. It's just going to be managed by. I suppose it's felt that it didn't need to be managed at CMT level. The view was taken that it could be managed at the directorate level. I think Stuart might.
Stuart?
Yes, by way of explanation, this risk was first added to the strategic risk register after the Brexit vote. So that was a time at which there was felt to be a particular risk to the Brighton Forest area, given our proliferation of large multinational organisations. But clearly we've gone through many phases of Brexit now. We're past Brexit, we're past the pandemic, and the economy in the local area is still holding up pretty well. So therefore, the view is that all the shocks that have been gone through have been survived. So therefore, it doesn't feel like it's a corporate risk anymore, but it's definitely one that the police directorate will wish to keep an eye on.
I believe Councillor Allen was first, and then Councillor Robertson.
Thank you. Yeah, just going back to this chart on page 9, I just spotted actually that safety valve is showing in the likelihood as 4, whereas on the main chart it's a 5 by 5. So it's it should actually be in the box above. So again, can we just double check this likelihood box, because it's actually a very good visual check. So we just check that the ratings further down and the detail match what's on the this table matches what's on further down.
Yes, we can do that. Yeah.
Thank you.
So just a point of clarification, should safety valve be a 5?
Yes, it's a 5 by 5.
Yeah, I noticed there was a difference between the report that we saw in June and this one. I was going to raise that as well, so well spotted.
I think I actually raised it in June that it was in the wrong place, but it's still in the wrong place. So
Sure, it's the next meeting as matters arising, I guess.
Robertson is next, and then Anderson after that.
Thank you. Talking about the cyber risk, is it possible to find out where the attack originated from?
Do you mean at the other authorities or just generally?
When the council of the IT system come under attack, is it possible to find out where the attack originated from?
I wouldn't have that level of information, to be honest, because it's not my area of expertise. So I'm not quite sure. I wouldn't be able to. I wouldn't like to commit to saying that they can when I'm not absolutely sure. I'm just wondering actually, because obviously there seems to be quite a lot of engagement around this particular risk, whether it may be at some point, whether it may be one that you might want to have the AD come to talk to you about. Maybe that might be something moving forward, because it's quite nice from time to time to have some sort of more deep dives into individual risks, and you have done that in the past. So it may be that you might want her to come and talk to you about that risk.
Okay.
That might be something to consider.
I think it's a very good suggestion. I think we'll adopt that and ask someone to come forward at the next meeting. Stuart?
Thank you, Chair. I think it's perfectly reasonable to ask the Assistant Director to come along, but I would suggest very strongly that it's in a private session. The last thing you want to talk about is your cyber security in public.
Very good, excellent, thank you.
Thank you. I noticed that special educational needs and disabilities remains a cause for concern. So can you be confident that this won't further impact on the direct schools grant?
I don't think I'm in a position to answer that one. I don't know whether Stuart might be in a better position to speak around that than I would be.
Stuart?
So Thank you. There are two issues around special education needs and disabilities. One is the service quality, and we have been picked up, as I'm sure you know, and apologise, I think this might be my hearing is going a bit mad. So we have been picked up with the inspection as needing to improve. So there's an absolute focus on that. There's a very large amount of activity on it. Associated to a certain extent, but also separate from that, is the financial issues that we're facing, which is that we have an increasing number of children with education, health and care plans. Once they have a plan, we need to find the most suitable education establishment for them. We don't have many places in the borough, so therefore we're having to place an awful lot of children beyond the borough in very expensive schools. So there are two elements to it, and it's a little bit of a cycle, because if you're felt to be not providing the best service potentially, whether you are or not, then parents will probably push harder for an AHCP, and that just exacerbates. So I think getting a better handle on the service quality, I think, might have a positive impact on the number of AHCPs increasing. And we've certainly seen a reduction in the rate of increase of AHCPs over the last year or so, as the service has made some improvements, but it's recognised there is more of a distance to go.
Any more questions? Any questions online? Just really a procedural question. Stuart, are you going to talk about the safety valve at any time this evening?
I'm very happy to. I think probably, though, it might be worthwhile me starting with financial sustainability, which is one of the areas that the committee, I think, wished to get a little bit more insight on, particularly around why is the risk tolerance increasing so much, and that is linked in some ways to safety valve. So if you look back a few years, then we had a situation where the council's financial position was relatively stable. And the position in the sector was not quite as bad as it is at the moment. There weren't many councils with exceptional financial support a couple of years ago, the very few Section 114 notices. So since that period of time, we did overspend against the 23-24 budget. So that I think led to a situation where we recognised that the financial situations are getting tighter for us, so therefore you saw an increase in the risk tolerance, because if we're facing a tighter financial situation, you can't necessarily expect to manage your risks as well as you had in the future. We're now in a situation where the whole of the sector is in financial crisis. There hasn't been enough money in local government for many, many years. You've got over 30 councils receiving exceptional financial support, including three of our neighbours in Berkshire. So the position of the sector is getting tighter. Our safety valve risk is getting higher because we're seeing an increased level of spend, so our deficit is increasing significantly. And while that doesn't put an immediate impact on our financial situation, at some point that is going to have to be paid off. And at the moment, we don't have any clear idea whether it's going to be the government having to pay that off or us having to pay that off. So that's playing out both locally and nationally. So in that context, it doesn't feel realistic to think that we can manage our financial risk down to the kind of level that we might be able to manage it down to a few years ago. So that's why the risk tolerance is now much higher. And the link to safety valve is that we are managing our programme of activity that we are in control of pretty well. So we closed the College Hall Prue. We have opened a new SEMH special school in the building, which was previously used for College Hall Prue. That opened last week. So we are doing all that we can, all that we committed to. We still don't have confirmation from government either way whether we're going to get our autism school in Buckler's Park. That's still something that we're focusing on. But the consequence of that is that we're £4 million a year away from where we thought we'd be just by that one school. So the pressures in safety valve are there, they are real, and therefore they're increasing the risk around our financial sustainability. But safety valve, actually, I mean, it's just an issue that we're facing now. It's a fact, it's happening. So I think where we're going to have a look at for the next iteration of the strategic risk register is whether the risk which is currently around safety valve should actually just be more generally around SEND education, because we've got the improvement bit as well as the financial bit we've got to look at, and I think this focuses probably too much on the financial side and not enough on the improvement bit. And if we don't get the service improved quickly, then that has reputation and financial challenges for us, as well as making the case that some pupils may not be receiving the optimum support that they need for their education. So hopefully, Chair, that kind of links the financial risk and safety valve risk. I'm happy to take any more specific questions on that if any councillors have any.
Any questions? No. In that case, I'm going to move the recommendation 2.1 on page 7. That we have reviewed the latest strategic risk register presented to you in Appendix 3. I think we've had a good summary of some of the changes. Also, in terms of where these risks lie. In terms of responsibility and their level. There's been a recommendation that we have a closer look at cyber risk for members of the committee, but we do that in private session next time. And I think we've opened discussion on where we're at in terms of safety valve and the risks associated with that. I will remind members that we will move to an in-private session later on where there'll be an additional opportunity to ask more questions. So I believe that we've identified the key risks and how they're being managed and maybe mitigated. I'm going to recommend that we note this report, and I'm going to ask for a seconder. Okay, thank you, Councillor Bidwell. I don't wish to speak any further. Councillor Bidwell, do you wish to speak?
I think no, I think I'm good with it. Thank you.
Okay, fine. So all those in favour? Thank you.
Yeah, just before we move on, just to note for the record that Councillor Frost has joined the meeting. Thank you.
Okay, that's good to know. Welcome, Councillor Frost. Okay, moving on to item 6. It's the internal audit update. And again, I'm going to ask Sally Hendrick to introduce the item. And just before I do that, I'd just like to give a welcome to Alex Middleton, who's joining us as Deputy Head of Internal Audit. So welcome on board, Alex. Over to you, Sally.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chairman. So this evening I'm bringing my latest update on the progress on the internal audit plan for 25-26, which also will include details of the outcomes of the audits that we have undertaken so far. So draw your attention to page 30, which shows our progress to date. So I've included a new table here to hopefully try and show a little bit more easily and clearly the audit status of the audit reports, to show the percentage completion and so on, which I hope is helpful to the committee, so you can see how we're progressing. As you may recall, we've had a lot of resourcing issues over the last few years, but we now have a full complement in place. And that is having a big impact. So we already have cleared our backlog from the last year, and we are now progressing very well through the plan for 25-26, which is very good news for us, and due in some good part to Alex and the hard work that he's carried out since he joined us in June. Just to sort of summarise here, we're sort of setting out here that we have basically to date got only about just over half the audits that we haven't yet started, and that's a very good position to be because this is really up to about the end of August. So we're in a very, very good start, very, very good position. The table below that then summarises what the outcomes are of the audits to date. But I did also want to draw your attention to the fact that since produced this report, we've actually finalised a couple of the reports, and we have got another 2 audit reports that are ready to go out as drafts for discussion. And in addition, we're just about to finalise the second grant certification. So we're making very good progress as we go through the year. So I draw your attention as well to section 3.4, which as always brings out those areas where we've identified any major or critical recommendations. I did want to also go back to what I discussed with you back in June, which was my concerns around the recommendation tracker. And to give you the very good news that Digital Services have done some excellent work to put a new tracker in place for us, which they have developed on the Liberty platform. So we're at the stage now where all the testing has been done and they are now migrating the data from the old tracker. And then once that is on and we know that's all functioning properly, we can then upload the audits from 24-25 and any 23-24 audits that we haven't yet been able to put on the tracker, because as you may recall, the old tracker started to have weaknesses a very long time ago. So we've been waiting some time to get this in place, but it's now all systems go and working very well. So we're hoping that we can then get everything onto the tracker with a view to providing some updates to you in January on how all those recommendations are progressing from 23-24 and from 24-25, so you can see that information and identify where there may be any further areas of concern that we need to go through in more detail. On the back of that as well, you may also recall that in June, when I came with my annual report, I did raise concerns about a number of areas where we were having repeat major recommendations, where we would carry out an audit and then we would go back to carry out a follow-up and we'd find those issues hadn't been addressed. So there are a number of issues that were in that sort of position, and we have this evening, Stuart is going to go through one of those areas, which was around budgeting and financial management. So he's going to, the Executive Director of Resources, go through that later on in the agenda. Those other areas, though, that we were raising concerns around back in June, we have actually gone back to management and got an update from them on the very latest position on where they are with those audit recommendations, and that is summarised in section 3.5 on page 32, and set out in more detail later on in the report, as we go to the back of this report in Appendix 2, setting out all these details on page 39 onwards. So as I said, the top one is around the budgeting, which Stuart is going to talk about in more detail later on. And then we also have a number of other areas. The first one being council-wide procurement, and the latest update shows that very good progress is being made on that now. We need to bear in mind that since the original audit, we've also had the No Procurement Act come into play. So that has added some sort of delay, but very good progress is being made now to produce a corporate pipeline, which in effect is really setting out the sort of breakdown of contracts that we've got and when they're due to be procured. So that's now up and running, and very good progress is being made. And in addition to that, a great deal of training has been undertaken, and further training is going to be carried out later this month. And I understand from updates that were provided to our resources management team the other day that the take up for that is very high, which is very good news. And I think they might even be having to put on additional sessions for it. So that's very good news in terms of that training. I'll move back on to business continuity later. School places planning, all of those issues that were previously outstanding in June have now been addressed, so that's very good news. And the trees services, they are also making good progress on their outstanding major recommendations and expecting to clear those very shortly. The last one that we had on here was a school where we had revisited and found that there were still some issues around purchasing, which had led to a major recommendation. We only carried out that audit in Q1 of 25-26, and it's really too early yet to be getting an update from the school on that. So we haven't done that this time around, particularly given the summer break. So we will go back and get an update from them in a couple of months' time. But going back to the one area which I think is still of some concern, that's business continuity, where the latest update they've given us has shown that they still have a little way to go to address all these points, and the actions that they were going to complete by May have not yet been done. So if you would be considering areas where you might want officers or managers to come in and talk through any areas and give you an update on recommendations that are not being progressed, then I would perhaps suggest that this may be one particular area where you might want to focus attention. So that's all I was going to say about my report, but happy to take any other questions.
Okay, Councillor Bidwell.
Yeah, thanks. I think what I wanted to know was the previous report that is on this table in 3.3, which is very helpful. It shows the comparison of audits year on year, so 24-25 compared to 2026. Now you've said we're in a good place because we're halfway through the year and the planned audits are what you would expect. The obviously looking at the inadequate, was that really down to earlier lack of resourcing, or is there a substantial problem that needs to be looked at?
With this particular one, this is sort of set out in the in detail in section 3.4. That was around some health and safety issues. So we did raise a number of recommendations in that area of things to be taken forward, and we're just in the process of sort of finalising the action plan for that one with management. There's just a range of different areas which are sort of summarised in that sort of section 3.4. Something to take forward. As I said, we're still at the stage where we're trying to finalise the audit report, and the difficulty with this one is because there's so many different parts of the council that we have to discuss the recommendations with, and that's causing us some delay in trying to finalise the audit report on this particular area because it's impacting on several different directorates. So it's quite hard for us to bottom it out. But we are trying to do that at the moment, and we're getting towards the end of that. But it has been quite difficult to try and work that through and get sort of final agreement and make sure we've got the right right levels and right accountabilities and right people to respond to the management responses.
Thank you.
Councillor Allen.
On the same topic of the inadequate health and safety rating, so do we have because you haven't written the action plan yet, you don't know when you'd be going back to reassess, but would you recommend that this is somewhere, because we very rarely get inadequates, this is something where we should pull it in?
I think at this stage, I wouldn't pull it in at this stage. I think we need to we need to get them to, because obviously they identify from the management side their action plan of what they're going to do, and then I think we need to make sure that we are getting regular updates through the recommendation tracker that we put in place as to what they're actually doing, to see how it's being addressed, and then we'll take it from there. And then as I think we've talked about before at the Governance and Audit Committee, given the wide range of activities that we do, you are from time to time going to get audits where they will come up with major recommendations and critical recommendations. And if we didn't, I think that would be quite concerning, because I would be worried that we would be missing things. But the real issue is where you find that people don't address the points that you've actually raised. So I think in the first instance, I think we should just leave them with the opportunity to try and progress their action plan and see how that's progressing. But if it's not, then I think maybe it may be something to consider bringing officers in to talk it through. This particular one, we do have 2 health and safety audits, so there's another one coming through as well. And that's just sort of coming to the point of sort of draft reports. So it may be that they might go slightly hand in hand, although the same sort of level of issues isn't being found on that one. It's just this particular one, but it may be something to consider moving forward. It's not. I think there are higher priority ones for you to look at in the meantime. I think certainly the business continuity would be one I would focus on to make sure that's progressed.
Okay, thank you. Stuart, you want to comment?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And if I can just reinforce the point that Sally has made, this particular audit was asked for by the Executive Director of Communities because he was concerned about the area. And we want Executive Directors, Assistant Directors to engage with internal audit to get their support around looking at areas which they have concern around. So I think if that's the intent, then I don't think it'd be helpful to give an indication that as soon as internal audit confirmed the deficiencies that the executive director had identified and then immediately brought in front of the committee for a conversation about it, and that would potentially get in the way of the request. So I think Sally's absolutely right. It's more about when the recommendations are identified and then not addressed. That's probably the right time for the committee to wish to take a closer look.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, so I was just going to say that I think meeting before last, there are a number of red areas, and we understood that these were kind of repeat offenders, and there was a sense that we needed quicker action to address those areas, and we were contemplating bringing in officers to explain to the committee. But I'm getting the impression from this report that progress has been made. Is that right, Sally?
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that we are making progress now, which I'm really pleased about. And a number of the areas, it's really very positive, and we've carried out another couple of follow-ups recently, which will be coming through to draft report. And certainly we have one from last year where we had a very poor opinion, and that's just been followed up actually by Alex, carried that one out for us, and that showed sort of significant progress. I think it's fair to say. So it's as Stuart says, it's very important that we don't discourage executive directors from getting us to look at things where they think there's a concern and checking it out for them. It's very important that we don't put them off doing that. And certainly we can see evidence in that particular case and in others that people are making progress on things and addressing the issues that we've actually identified, which is very good news.
Okay, thank you, Sally. I mean, we're just mindful that the council is short of resources. We don't have time, people, and effort to keep revisiting the same area over and over. If a recommendation is made, we're looking to see those recommendations actioned by the responsible officers as soon as possible. Councillor Bidwell.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, with that in mind, I think this committee should ask for an officer to come in from business continuity and to give us an update on A, where they are with the current recommendation action plan, if there is one, and B, if there isn't one, why there isn't one, and C, what do they need to do to complete it.
Okay, we'll note that. Councillor Zuhruddin.
I think Stuart might have already answered my question. I had similar thing about health and safety. It's really positive that it's it's a step in the right direction to have an action plan around that very important area. So my request is like given the across our different departments, we have many client-facing teams, staff, everybody, contractors, and everybody working. I fully appreciate the complexity it is involved in. Having said that, it would be nice, or it would be informative for this committee to be aware of at least which areas that this particular, this concern is arising from. Is it from IT, or is it from highways, or it is some indication? Again, it's not to discourage assistant directors to feel like questioned or feel insecure about it. It's about just identifying ways how this committee can help. It's more about offering help if there's anything we can. So I think if we take this message back to assistant directors or anybody involved in this survey, my request is to say it's not about finger pointing. It's about working collaboratively, knowing where the issues are, bringing back to this table, and then see how we can help to get them resolved. So.
Okay, thank you for your kind words, Councillor. They're duly noted. Yes, obviously we have to balance getting a positive action with being helpful as best we can, using the expertise and resources of the committee and the officers that support us. So I agree with that. Okay, if there are no further questions, we don't take a vote on the internal audit update. We just note that report and thank Sally and the team for their contribution. Okay, moving on to item 7, which is the financial management update. Now, there are some procedural steps that we have to take here. It's set out in the agenda, but basically this report is in 2 parts. There is a public element, which is pages 45 to 48. And then from pages 49 onwards, the pages are displayed in pink because they are private. And we don't disclose that information or any discussion arising, questions arising to the public and the press. And we can do that because that is the law, Local Government Act 1972, which allows us to do that. So, with that in mind, as we move to item 7, I'm going to ask Stuart to present the report, and we can take questions as far as pages 48, and then we will have to move into a private session. To move into a private session, we have to take a vote. Yeah? So the committee has to agree that we should do that. So just to let you know how this section of the agenda is going to play out. Over to Stuart.
Thank you, Chair. So this covering report and the detailed dependencies have been brought to the committee in response to the discussion that you had at the June meeting around some of the areas where recommendations have been identified by internal audit and they had not all been enacted in a quick manner. So one of the areas was around the budgeting audit, which was undertaken back in 2020-23. And so the report, I'll just give a little bit of a high-level introduction on the covering paper. Happy to take any questions on that. But then if you wish to look at some of the more specific detail, I'm very happy again to do that, but that will need to be after the committee takes a vote to go into the private session. So in overall terms, Bracknell Forest's financial management arrangements and budgeting rates have been very strong. They've served the council very well since 1998. So between 1998 and 2022, the council had delivered within budget every year. So we hadn't had an overspend, but we did have an overspend in the 23-24 financial year, first time ever. So inevitably that raised questions around are there any deficiencies in our systems, processes, arrangements that would have potentially contributed to that we should look to improve in the period ahead to make sure that we minimise the risk of that recurring. So the internal audit review was undertaken towards the end of the financial year in which we overspent. There was a sense we were probably going to overspend, but we didn't know what the scale of it was. So we preempted action, and Sally and her team came in and had a look at things. And the key issue that was identified was that there were in some parts of the council an over-reliance on the finance team to actually undertake the financial management arrangements. So it was recognised that that's not the operating model that we have signed up to as an organisation. We do expect budget managers to take responsibility for the budgets under their control, to make sure they have adequate arrangements in place to monitor those budgets during the course of the year. And should it be apparent that it looks as though their areas might be overspending, which does happen, then to identify mitigating actions. So it was clarified that we should make sure that everyone understands that that's the operating model. And we have been in the process of doing that since. There's lots of specific examples put out in the report which are all within that theme. I think the key one though is that as an organisation we've adopted a manager behaviour framework. That was part of the workforce programme, one of the business change programmes early this year, and that does have a very specific section in there indicating the expected skills and knowledge of individuals who have budget management responsibilities within the organisation. So that's a starting point, but we do still need to make sure that we do work to make sure that the people have the appropriate skills, knowledge and tools available to them to actually support them in doing that. So there will be a further programme of training in place over the autumn, the detailed arrangements that are starting, and that's going to be about general financial management training. And we do expect most people who have got budget management responsibilities across the organisation to attend that. We've got a variety of skill sets, but this is about trying to make sure that we bring everyone up to the same point in that. And that will be followed next spring when we have a new version of Aggresso in place, up and running, by more specific bespoke training, which we'll be looking at the new pages in Aggresso, the new ways in which we expect people to use that, because the system we'll be using from next spring is a bit different than the one we currently have. So we've already started the process of migration to Aggresso. That takes us on a little bit to the next stage of the work, which was informed by the internal audit review, and that was a commission of PwC to come in and have a look at our financial management arrangements across the whole organisation, so that we're not talking about the finance team, this is about how they work across the whole organisation. So the PwC review was informed by some of the issues that the internal audit team found. They did interviews, they attended departmental management team meetings across the organisation, they met with the finance team. So their conclusion is that actually we've got an awful lot of strengths, but some of our arrangements are a bit backwards. So for example, they identified that we were something like 13 versions of Aggresso behind the current version, a long way. And because of that, managers didn't have access to the most up-to-date tools in the Aggresso suite. One of those we've had to buy, but we will have, once we move towards the new version in the spring, a new module called financial planning and analysis, and that gives much more user-friendly access to budget managers, graphs, etc. they can look at rather than just numbers on a screen. I'm pleased to report to the committee that yesterday we signed off the upgrade to the current version of Aggresso on our current hosting environment. So that was tested and it's now up and running and working. So that's the starting point. We've still got a couple of migration points to go, but we're moving on the Aggresso. The other element that PwC really highlighted is that we don't use, in the same way some other councils are doing, the new digital tools such as Power BI, very powerful tools. We do use it in some areas, but not consistently across the organisation. So they identified that's something that we should look to do further. But in order to make that really effective, we need to also make sure that our key business systems, such as the social care systems, the education system, are properly integrated within our core financial system. At the moment, they're not. So we recognise there's an awful lot of work in all of that. So we have kicked off an internal corporate improvement review around council-wide financial management arrangements, which will pick up the issues that Sally's team identified, which haven't yet been fully implemented. It will pick up the issues such as Power BI implementation, the new version of Aggresso, and it will pick up the integration with the other key systems. So that's a 2-year programme of work. There's an awful lot in there. We'll also be looking at things like debt management arrangements. How can we make that more streamlined, more consistent? Things like no purchase order, no pay. We currently only have about 35% of invoices are supported by purchase orders. We want to take that further. So a number of different strands to that corporate improvement programme. But when we took the terms of reference for that through the corporate management team, alongside the update to the internal audit review a couple of months ago, there's a very clear trail which either the internal audit recommendations had now been dealt with, or they were clearly in scope of the financial management review that we're in the process of undertaking. So I think hopefully that gives the committee confidence at a kind of high level that we recognise we weren't starting from a poor position, but there were things that we could do better. There's always things that you can do better. And we've already addressed some of those, and we have a clear plan in place to address the others.
Okay, so questions for the public record. Councillor Bidwell.
Yes, thank you, Chair. 2 things. The monthly monitoring, I mean, clearly that's really important to be able to track whatever period you feel appropriate against budget. And that clearly wasn't done adequately enough. Now it is being done. So are you confident that you're on the right track with that? And how can you demonstrate that? And second, well, do you want to answer that one first?
Councillor Bidwell, it has always been done, but there is an element that I'm happy to talk about in the private part of the session.
Okay, that's fair enough. The second one is I understand how important it is to integrate to core systems. Must have other directorates or all directorates talking to one another through a core picture of the finances of the local authority. And I understand it's a 2-year programme. However, I would have thought quite fundamental is being able to match POs and sales orders. So could that not be a priority that you could push up the line, because that is obviously an area that could leave payments being made without adequate cover?
Well, all payments have to be approved, so everything that goes through Aggresso has to go through an approval process. But having more invoices supported by POs will make that a more streamlined process, make it more automated. So therefore, that is something that we are looking at already. That's going to be towards the start rather than the end of the programme.
Thank you.
Councillor Robertson.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Sir, for talking to us about what's happened. I agree with your thoughts on purchase orders, increasing the amount as we go through time. I had a look at Aggresso on the website, and I found they're called Unit 4 now. Yes, okay. Thank you.
Yes, the product that we use is called Aggresso, but the owner is Unit 4. You're absolutely right.
Okay, if there's no further questions, then we're going. Oh, I beg your.
It's just a comment. I realise that this is a work in progress, but at the end of it, can you be certain that there will be consistency across all areas?
That's a very hard question to answer. There will be consistency of understanding around what the arrangement should be. why I hesitate to say yes, definitely, is because we have very different services in place across the council. So managing a social care budget where you have where you can have clients come in overnight who can cost you 15 to 20,000 pounds a week is very different from managing a budget which is mostly about staffing costs. So we need to tailor the particular approaches to managing the budgets to reflect the complexity of them. But in terms of the basic principles, yes, absolutely.
Yeah, well, thank you, Stuart. So I think, as Stuart's outlined, local authorities, councils around the country, more and more of them are facing financial pressures because of the general environment. And I think it's right that this committee examine how well our internal processes, our teams are going to be able to face those challenges, the ones that we have currently and ones that are likely to arise. So I now propose that we move to the private session. And as I said, we need to take a vote on this. So in that private session, we'll be able to listen to Stuart talk about the pink pages. And we'll also have item 9, which is the counter fraud update from Sally Hendrick. So pursuant to section 100A of the Local Government Act 1972, Schedule 12A of the Act, with regard to the public interest, I propose that members of the public and the press be excluded, but our external auditors are welcome to stay. Do I have a seconder?
Yes, Chair, I'm happy to second.
All those in favour, please show your hands. Okay, I'm going to ask the clerk just to signal when it's okay to speak in private.